Hello, second graders. I am so excited about this unit. I am so ready to kick off this trimester and talk about art in my world. And to do that, we are going to be taking a trip to Disney. We're going to be talking about the magical world of Disney. And in specifics, we're going to talk about Mary Blair. Mary Blair was one of the most instrumental and influential artists that worked for Walt Disney back in the early days of Disney. She was an iconic Disney artist who was so influential that she had many of her storyboards were in classic Disney films like Cinderella, Pinocchio, Dumbo, some of those classics that you think of that are the older Disney films. But what you also don't realize is that she was influential in creating some of those rides that you know of that are at Disney World and Disneyland, and maybe some of you have even ridden on some of those. For example, like It's a Small World. Everybody knows that song. It's a small world after all. Okay, I'll leave the singing to your music teachers because Mrs. Lukes definitely does not sing. I draw. Okay, so I'll leave the singing to them. But at the same time, maybe you've ridden that ride before or you've heard that song before. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna watch a little video that talks to us about Mary Blair and a little bit about her history and her involvement in the Disney Corporation. And then after we're done with that, we're gonna do some brainstorming and thinking about how we can actually create a castle based on some of the art that we see in our world. We're gonna break it down into simple lines and simple shapes, but we're also going to talk about different flags of different countries and how we can incorporate the different styles of the art of these flags into our own artwork to create our own pieces. So let's check out that video and then we'll head right back and we'll talk a little bit more about art, a little bit more about Mary Blair, and a little bit more about what comes next. All right, enjoy.
Today we're going to learn about artist and designer Mary Blair. Mary Blair was an American artist, animator, and designer. She was prominent in producing art and animation for the Walt Disney Company, drawing concept art for such films as Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and Cinderella. Born on October 21st, 1911 in McAlester, Oklahoma, Mary Brown Robinson moved to Texas while still a small child, and later to the city of Morgan Hill, California, in the early 1920s. After graduating from San Jose State University, which she attended from 1929 to 1931, Mary won a scholarship to the Chouinard Art Institute in Los Angeles. She graduated from Chouinard in 1933. In 1934, she married another artist, Lee Everett Blair. Along with her husband Lee, she became a member of the California School of Watercolor and quickly became known for being an imaginative designer. Blair's first professional job in the animation industry was as an animator with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Blair joined Walt Disney Animation Studios in 1940 and worked for a short time on art for Dumbo and an early version of Lady and the Tramp. Along with her husband Lee, who also worked for Walt Disney, she accompanied Walt Disney, Lillian Disney, and several of his artists on a South American tour in 1941. Upon their return, Blair created concept art that ended up being used for films inspired by the trip, including Saludos Amigos and The Three Caballeros. Blair first began animation and color design on major films in 1943 and continued to work on animated films at Walt Disney Studios for a full decade. The early 1950s were a busy time for the Disney studio, with an animated feature release nearly every year. Mary Blair was credited with color styling on Cinderella in 1950, Alice in Wonderland in 1951, and Peter Pan in 1953. After the completion of Peter Pan in 1953, Blair left Disney to concentrate on illustrating children's books, raising her family, and being a freelance graphic designer. At the request of Walt Disney, Blair began work on Disney's new attraction It's a Small World for the 1964 New York World's Fair. After the World's Fair, the attraction moved to Disneyland. and was later recreated at the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World Resort, as well as Tokyo Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, and Hong Kong Disneyland. Mary Blair was of course well known for her striking concept art that she produced for the Walt Disney Company movies, but most well known for her contribution of design to It's a Small World. She's credited with the color scheme for It's a Small World. Her unique, amazing sense of color can be found throughout the ride. Sometimes she made daring, surprising selection of colors, including a mocha-colored sky, pink mountains, and brightly colored plants. Why do you think Mary Blair used these colors to represent the colder areas of the world? Why do you think she used these colors to represent the warmer areas of the world? The It's a Small World dolls, with their large heads and tiny features, came directly from a series of Hallmark note cards designed under the Walt Disney label by Mary Blair in the 1940s. One such set of cards was based on places Mary Blair visited during the Disney expedition when she toured South America in 1941. Mary Blair's design of the attraction's facade is a collection of rectangles and triangles fit together like an abstract painting. The shapes hint at different architecture from all over the world, reinforcing the theme of It's a Small World after all. You can also find Mary Blair's artwork at the Contemporary Resort in Walt Disney World. There at the Contemporary, you'll find a large mosaic by artist Mary Blair. Her concept art on the It's a Small World project would be her final major design for the Disney Company. Mary Blair moved back to California and died on July 26, 1978. After her death in 1991, Mary was honored as a Disney legend. Her artwork is still admired by visitors every day to Walt Disney World and Disneyland.
As we just learned, Mary Blair helped design It's a Small World for the World's Fair of 1964 to 1965, with the proceeds going to UNICEF, which is the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. The dolls in It's a Small World wore native costumes, and the sets were also set to look like the countries from around the world. These lovable dolls were sculpted by Blaine Gibson, with their costumes created by Alice Davis. The legendary ride designer Bob Gurr worked in assistance with Aero Development to devise the boat ride system, which was also an industry first. As you can see in the last scene in Paris, there was also a doll created to look just like Mary Blair. We're going to head over to Seesaw to talk about flag design.
Hello artists, we are jumping over to Seesaw. On the Seesaw templates, what I want you to do is I want you to look at the series of flags that you see. And I want you to look at the flags and look at them for their lines, their shapes, and their colors. On each page, I would like you to circle at least one flag that appeals to you, that you like, based on the lines, shapes, and colors. So as I look at this first page, I'm going to look at the flags and say which one is my favorite. Looking at these flags, I kind of like the Macedonia flag the best. So I'm going to circle that one. I feel that it has colors that I like, shapes that I like, and different lines that I like. Moving over to page 2, when I look at these flags, I'm analyzing them again for the lines, the shapes, and the colors. I think when I look at this page, I like the Syria flag, so I'm going to circle that one. If there is more than one flag, it is okay that you circle more than one. I might also say to myself that I like the Kuwait flag, so I can circle a second one. As I jump to page 3, again, I'm looking through the flags to see which one appeals to me. Which one do I like based on lines, shapes, and colors? As I look through them, I think I like the Jamaica flag the best. Hopping over to the next page, page 4, I'm looking at these flags. When I look through these ones, I think I like the Syria flag the best. Going over to page 5, I'm looking through these ones. Ooh, I think I like, oh, these ones are tough ones. There's a lot on here that I think I like. I think I'm going to circle a few. I think I'm going to circle this one. I think I'm going to circle this one. Oh, and I think I'm going to circle one more because there's just too many that I like. I think I'm going to circle this one. There's so many African flags that appeal to me. Moving over to page 6, I'm going to see if I can find one here on this page. Looking at this page, I think I'm going to circle, how about this one here? I like the lines, the shapes, and the colors on this page, especially that swirly line that I see here. Page 7, if you want to circle flags on this page, you can, but page 7 is designed to show you all the flags on the same page together. Moving over to page 8, this is where you are actually going to design your own flag. Keep in mind that you're going to draw your own flag on a piece of paper and you're going to color it with crayons, colored pencils, or markers. You could even use paint if you want to use paint. Make sure that you tell us about your flag. What lines, shapes, and patterns and colors did you choose for your flag? In just a second, I'm going to do a quick time lapse to design my own flag, and then I'm going to upload it to Seesaw to show you my flag. Can't wait to see what you come up with. Before I start my coloring process, I wanted to take a second to look at the planning process that I did. I took inspiration from the Macedonia flag and the Vanuatu flag that I saw. I love the rays that I saw in the Macedonia flag and the warm color scheme and the swirl that I saw in the Vanuatu flag. I also took some inspiration from self-identity, from the warm beach scenes that I like, and the sunshine from the sunflowers that I thought about when I think about my love of art and my inspiration from Vincent van Gogh. Now I'm going to do a time lapse of me coloring my flag. Before I start coloring, I'm going to gather some of my materials. I'm going to be using markers, but you can use crayons, colored pencils, markers, paints, anything that you choose. Since I'm going to be using my design markers, I'm going to take an extra piece of paper and I'm going to slide it in between the pages of my sketchbook. So that way it doesn't bleed through and ruin any papers that I have that are below the surface of the actual flag that I'm working on. I've decided to work with warm colors, so I pulled reds, oranges, and yellows. You may use any different color patterns that you choose to use. Once you have completed your design, you're going to hop over to Seesaw and upload it. On one side, you're going to upload a picture of the flag that you've colored on paper, and the other side, you're going to tell us about your flag. What lines, shapes, and colors did you choose? Where did your inspiration come from? If you look at page 9, I have uploaded my example. I used the camera function. When I clicked on it, I clicked the upload, or I could take a picture right on the spot, depending on how you took your picture. On the right-hand side, I talked about my inspiration for my project. I said I chose inspiration from the Macedonia and Vanuatu flags. I liked the warm colors, strong rays, and swirls. I also included my own self-identity and love of the warm beach, art, and Vincent van Gogh's sunflowers. After you're done, don't forget to click that green check, send it off to us. Next week, we will start building our own Mary Blair inspired castles to go along with the flags that we created today.